Hello and welcome back to the Castlevania franchise. Sadly, we haven't been here for a long while. The last thing we did was technically Castlevania 2 back with Dark Star. So this is a bit of a jumping point. And we technically should have done at least 3 and the Symphony of the Night at the very least, or, with our Round of Blood trilogy. But I do believe this still does merit to be looked at. You see, in the year 2010, Konami decided was in kind of a reboot spree. They had already done something with Frogger, they did something with Bomberman, as they've showcased to us, and this was the other thing, Castlevania, handled by a Spanish developer team, Mercury's team, which pointed basically all on presentation alone. Gameplay-wise, as you're gonna see soon enough, it's gonna be essentially a God of War clone, which, to be fair, in itself is not really necessarily a bad thing. This first game mostly suffers from the presentation issue, in a sense, performance issue, in a sense, but the game is uncapped at 60, but you rarely see it.
This game was also co-developed by
Kojima Production. Yes, while not a direct writer, Kojima has a bit of input, but first narration given to us by Patrick Stewart.
Yep, Patrick Stewart is in this. Dad says it is.
Picard.
Dad says it is. The cast for the Lord of Shadows trilogy is very high budget.
I will mention these more later, but for the time being, know that by being this reboot, you don't need to know anything about the previous Castlevania games.
It's an alternate universe, right?
Yes, AU, Castlevania AU, technically. There will be winking at the camera moments, but I will only mention when it happens. It is mostly for the sequels than this one.
He has come far already, but he will be tested.
So yeah, the year is 1047, relatively early actually in the 11th century, and things are kinda shit.
With an amulet
Typical.
that has led him here. Tonight, he will begin his journey.
Well, that can only mean good things for him too.
And pretty much. And like I said, presentation is the high point. For a PS3 and Xbox 360 game, this looks absolutely gorgeous, as you will see. Even when there are more murky stuff, the game still shines with incredible details and colors a bit all over the place, actually.
Oh, no. Like, seriously, everything about this game's presentation is high octane.
Yeah,
the visuals,
You'll see in a second with
the visuals, the art style, and of course, like I mentioned, the voice cast. Like, seriously, this thing could literally double for, like, a movie with the cast.
This is another kind of those game where I really wish I had a remaster on modern consoles, because an uncapped 60 frames for this, which you can get on the PC version on Steam, this is the PS3 version, will only make it benefit, especially with an uncompressed type of graphic.
I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten...
But yeah,
seem to be in a bit more of a mood, so...
For some reason, God has decided to leave the poor humans at the mercy of the forces of darkness.
There is
there is someone who wants to investigate about this and do something about it, but one step at a time. We have our dashing protagonist in his really great costume. It's a red and gold kind of attire, but it's not necessarily a cape. Originally, this was supposed to still be a reboot, but as a protagonist, a new redesigned Simon Belmont in a more traditional way. But then Konami decided probably to just mandate to differentiate things entirely, and have instead a complete new protagonist, not based on any of the previous Belmonts.
Yeah, that's
someone who could stand his ground on his own. So and if you're a Smash player, you will recognize that this new design for the whip was actually kept for Simon and Richter.
Yeah, okay, actually, Wait, had the Morning Star form of the whip actually been in another Castlevania game? I forgot. Was it in
Okay, not with this particular design. What's the term? I think Sakura himself did mention that the design of the Vampire Killer was basically identical to the one of this game.
Oh
but
my God,
anyway,
I thought my video froze.
No. God of War clone, meaning square line attacks, heavy, triangle heavy attacks. More specifically, the triangle allows our protagonist to perform like a 360 circular move.
Speaking of Smash Ultimate actually acknowledged that this game existed, even has spirits from it too.
That being said, the fandom, as you can imagine, is very split on this. I will save a more detailed discussion only for later, because it's a huge kind of worm. But let's be said that people had a lot to talk about this. For the time
Who's
being,
the main character we're playing as?
his name will be revealed in a second, actually, Reeves, so please be a bit more patient, because this game actually has a decalogue-esque entry, but unlike in Final Fantasy XIII, where they were like mandatory to be learned, to be known, and very boring to look at, these one are more or less to tell you what, stuff that you already know, and the sprinkles that they add to it's not something that you really need to know, but still useful information if you like that kind of lore. And they're accompanied by gorgeous illustrations. I will tell for another part what the main theme is, particularly the artist, because again, his ideas are what shaped the art style of the game to be this kind of detailed and colorful despite everything. Even on a simple battle in the rain like this, you can still tell that everything is not just brown and gray, but there are different tonalities, and the costume of your character, sparkling red, contrast among everything else.
Hey, Tio. Sonny, you mentioned that this was originally supposed to be Simon Belmont we're playing as, one has to wonder, at what point did Konami decide that Simon was the mascot of Castlevania? Because that's the thing, unlike a lot of mascots of video game series and whatnot, Simon, arguably for quite some time, did not even have the most appearances in the series.
I have to guess early on, Java, considering he was chosen to be the Castlevania main character in Captain N.
That's the only real major...
Not to mention, Java, there was the SNES title, which was a reimagining of the first game. Not to mention
the arcade game.
Which also got transplanted into the PS1 title Chronicles, which had the new design, one of the new designs of Simon, which is more akin to the illustration given to games like Symphony of the Night, which detach a bit more the barbarian look and give him a more pretty boy kind of appearance. It's not judgment, weirdness of level. But the people are still preferring the classic barbarian look. Anyway, there you go.
Because
these
Jesus Christ,
lycanthropes. These creatures are humans that have been poisoned with the infectious disease known as the werewolf influenza, which is transmitted in most cases with the bite of a lycanthrope. There is an old saying that goes like this: if you're bitten by a lycan, better to let it know. And like most probability, it's probably true. Once infected with the disease, the transformation process can be completed only in a few minutes, after which a victim's bite will have been replaced by the savage instinct of a ruthless predator.
So true.
And the catalog also tells you which specific weapons these enemies are weak against. In this case, you're throwing daggers because they're colored in silver. Yes, Drogo?
So what is your favorite design of Simon? For me, it's a toss-up between the Conan look and the Chronicles look, though.
Classic Conan the Barbarian style, which I'm eternally grateful is the one that got used for Smash.
Also, too, how'd you like...
Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy the other Kojima's art style, which is the one used from Symphony of the Night onward, but I do also appreciate the classic designs.
Sorry, I hate the Chronicles design for Simon.
Is it the red hair or the barbarian look?
Shit.
It doesn't look like Simon. It could have been easily any other perfect character.
Okay, Shiro, you have the keys to the... Anyway, hold on. The Great Warg. Wargs are the principal strength of large lycanthropies raiding parties. Some of them are blessed by the Dark Lord himself, which gives them new powers such as improved strength and wound regeneration. Due to the nature of his blessing, these powers are heightened by a moon, of course. So Shirei, you tend to have to hold the keys to the animal kingdom. How it's best to deal with a large dog like this?
Probably not the way you're doing it.
Well, do you have any other suggestions?
What can I say, Shirei? I never had a dog pet.
Teo. I kind of already went through this with you in our determination run. When a giant dog falls from the sky, just drive the fuck away. There you go.
Okay, here's one weird thing compared to God of War. Instead of using the right analog stick to just dodge, you have to hold like R2 and press the left analog stick. It's weird.
Very
I mean, if
weird.
you can control that car well enough to drive away, be my guest.
So Tia, how do you...
Sadly, we have to. Oh no, okay. We need to have to use a QT to finish this beast because again, being similar to God of War, this also means that there are a lot of QTs. Although this game is particularly infamous for having a particular kind of QTs that's different from the norm. You've seen it beforehand with the grabbing move, but essentially you will have a circle that gets closed. You need to press any button when it's in the right area to do it. It removes a bit of challenge, I have to admit, because instead of actually asking you a specific button to press. But hold on, we're about to finish the fight.
So Tia, I'm guessing you really like that Smash Ultimate gave Simon a costume resembling this guy's.
Pretty much.
Also, sure, I don't know. I was able to do it just fine in the run, like I said. So.
I just had to.
Alright.
So, you may also notice that...
Wait, Tia.
Hmm?
So, if assuming that the Lords of Shadow series continued with the God of War inspiration, do you think the current one we would have gotten would take inspiration from 2018?
I don't know, but I will mention later. Yes, our protagonist with is called Gabriel Belmont, and he's voiced by Robert Carlyle, aka Durza from Aragon and Mr. Gold from Once Upon a Time.
Yep.
And I mentioned this a couple of times.
In the forest.
Robert Carlyle absolutely sells this role. He's like it's completely born for it.
That said, though, according to the lore now, everyone is Scottish.
Pretty much. There are a lot of accents actually in this game.
But yeah, folks.
Oh, Galina Wars.
Because they're in Europe.
So folks, you may be wondering, Squirm, you're talking about Simon Belmont a lot, but in that case, why is this game its own timeline instead of being a part of the main timeline? Well, aside from some very, 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 very big elephants in the room regarding the plot twist of who this guy is, well, in regards to the main timeline, around this time, the main Castlevania timeline had pretty much been tapped.
Cool. That's a thing.
Yeah.
I'll mention this also later, but Iga was about to be kind of decide to fuck off from Konami. We seen it thanks to the E3 conference, but basically it was just about to be developing the last game before actually parting away without the chance to be doing his Battle of 99 video game, which is kind of a shame. And
that's the one with Alucard in it. Like,
no,
no.
Not really. I will mention this another time.
This far into the wood. He is disturbed by dreams that gnaw at his very soul. He will rest for the night, but rest will not come.
And yeah, in case you're wondering, Patrick Stewart is not gonna be just a narrator. He's an actual character, which we will meet later. So stay tuned for him too.
He fears nothing on this earth. Yet
you can definitely tell this was back in a time when Konami still liked to make games, for sure, because these games are pretty high octane.
He will use the old hunting path. Long has it been in disuse.
They have a lot of production value, can tell you that. And this is an external Spanish studio with not much of an experience behind it. It's kind of impressive. But let me instead talk about another one of the highlights of this game. These games in general. The score. The composer is Spanish, actually. Pedro did mention previously at the E3 conference what his pronunciation might be. I think it's Oscar Araujo or Araujo. There you go. Actually Spanish. He mostly worked for movies and TV in Spain. But he has collaborated also with the Mercury's team also on the more recent game that he did, Space Lords. His soundtrack is absolutely gorgeous to listen at in these games. I really recommend you to find it and listening on YouTube, Spotify, wherever it might be available, because it's really interesting. But yeah, sadly, Gabriel has a bit of a revenge quest on his going on, because his beloved one, Marie, seemed to have died.
She lost her head a bit.
Ah.
Yeah, more like she got ahead in life.
Every time you guys mention that, all I can think of is Mami from Madoka Magica. Hello.
I hear you seek the Guardian of the Lake.
We will learn specifically who this character is later.
Climb onto my back. Hurry.
Oh my god, it's Patrick Stewart.
No, it's not him. I will tell in a second who his voice actor is actually, because it's
That's
kind
the
of
identity of our protagonist, isn't it? Patrick
What?
Stewart.
No. Again, our character is strictly voiced by Robert Carlyle, while Patrick Stewart is gonna be his own character. Anyway, Ride Horse, basically simple controls. This is actually the only section in the game that is like this. This game actually has a lot of set pieces, but have only like one gameplay style, that then goes away immediately. Anyway, the person who voiced Marie. Marie, the youngest daughter of a rich merchant family, was always attracted by the courageous nature of a Brotherhood of Light. Curious and lively, she often escaped her duties at home in order to help the monks, baking and cleaning for them. During one of his visits, she became acquainted with the boy that would later become her husband, an orphan by the name of Gabriel. The two youngsters were made for each other. They grew up together and made promises for the future. These promises were kept when, one idyllic morning, with the blessing of both the family and the Brotherhood, the couple was married. Marie provided a good counterpoint to Gabriel's dark moods, and often just their laughter was enough to blow away the gathering storm within him. Now Marie has tragically been murdered, and Gabriel seeks revenge.
That sucks.
But yeah, that's also a nice kind of backstory, the fact that these two were just childhood friends. Again, you don't really need to know. For the purpose of the game, you just need to know that Marie was Gabriel's wife and she was just murdered. But again, it's kind of nice to know that they bothered to flesh out just a bit.
And we will be learning more.
And as you can see, the frame rate is already starts dipping for these sequences.
Alas. But yeah, like I mentioned,
What
though,
console are you playing this on?
Sorry, Dej?
What console are you playing this on again?
PS3. Little do you know about these fierce wolf-like beasts, except they appear soon as the coming of the lycanthropy Dark Lord. Despite their wild looks, wargs are fairly intelligent creatures, capable of being tamed by lesser lycanthropies who ride them in battle. Wargs are ferocious creatures that attack opponents with razor-sharp claws and sharp, deadly teeth. I get the idea that the Xbox 360 version would work a bit better, but not by much. And in case the PC version still has an uncapped 60 frames per second that actually works. So if you're curious to play this game, get it on Steam. It's probably on sale, as soon as you can think of it.
But yeah, like I said, at the time of this game's release, the main Castlevania timeline, while it was skirmish in that one crucial game, was more or less complete, if I recall correctly. Like, we had the beginning...
I argue in the E3 conference that it was just missing that Battle 99, but the story kind of reached a natural conclusion with Soma in the Sorrow duology.
Yeah.
And even the side stuff that was in between games like, say, Symphony of the Night and the Modern Timeline did fill in the gaps decently enough. Sure, you could still technically make more.
Belmonts get the whip back. How did the Belmonts get the whip back?
That's
After
actually
Portrait of
explained in
Ruin.
Portrait of Ruin.
Portrait of Ruin lifts the curse that Shaft did put. But sadly, again, these, for intents and purposes, these games were the only thing that Castlevania fans got for basically a long while. Only recently they got the collections of these titles. It's still not a new game. So when someone gets kind of pissed off because these kind of games were the only thing Castlevania rated that they got, I can totally see where they're coming from, especially if you're not particularly caring about the genre. Mind you, it's not the first time the series did something like that. Lament of Innocence and to an extent Curse of Darkness did already implemented this kind of, God of War-esque, more action-based combat on the PS2 and similar platforms.
64.
What about 64?
We don't
64
really
64 was more puzzle based. It was more clunky. Similarly, Legacy of the Darkness, but it still carries on the spirit that Konami wanted to inject a more actiony 3D look into the franchise. But if you look around on YouTube these days, this particular reboot is still not well regarded, and like I said, I can actually see the reasons why people not do it. I still personally enjoyed it as someone who also played the original series. I personally enjoyed both of them on different kind of levels. But again, if this was the only thing, if I actually was not caring for the genre, and this was still the only thing that I got Castlevania buys for all these years, more than a decade at this point, I would be pretty pissed too.
Okay, we should also address some things with the gameplay here. While I have pretty much almost nothing to say but praise about the presentation, the gameplay does unfortunately fall into a lot of traps that, well, God of War clones fall into. That and sometimes sometimes the gameplay can feel like it gets a bit stale, formulaic, or repetitive at times.
I can say this, Jova, while it does have the whole, I'll say something similar to, say, Crash of the Titans, where it has area that suddenly get closed off and you clear the mooks before proceeding. It's done in a better way, instead of being too obnoxious and giving you absolutely no chance in how dealing things up. You may notice... Sorry, yes, Bibs?
I actually kind of like the, I don't know if it's just because it's 30 frames or if it's just decent or if it's an effect they added over it. But during the gameplay, it's got this really nice filmic effect going for it, if you know what I mean.
Okay, I don't know what you're referring to, but if you're referring specifically to the pauses that you invert with each hit, intentional.
How the frame rate looks like it's from a movie.
It's clearly not intentional, dude. This game is supposed to run natural at 60. So, sorry.
Well,
if I remember correctly, even on the PS3.
Yes, you will see. That is one reason why they still decided to record it in such. You will see later that there are sequences where not much is loaded onto the map, and therefore they actually do run at 60.
Which is weird because Jim seems to enjoy it.
Well, like he said, he's thinking it more as a movie, which is clearly not the intended way, but not intended. Anyway, to put it more...
Half the cast is from big movies.
But also, since you were about to get it, also, yes, we're having an Indiana Jones style travel by map. Okay?
So then we should travel by
with
map.
A super epic choir. Like I said, call it over the top in some occasion, but the score is just amazing.
I really like this song.
Okay. One thing I will point out, as for why some fans may not have been the most welcoming to this reboot, Konami, in typical Konami fashion, weren't the best in explaining exactly what the situation was. Like, was this going to be the new norm from now? Was this just a spin-off? They weren't clear about that. At least that's what I recall from when this game was released. Again,
anyway,
not a knock.
Sorry, go on.
Not a knock against the game itself, but I do feel like Konami having better communication skills with the fan base would have helped their understanding of what the situation was, because, again, sometimes with companies, as far as you know, this completely drastic thing can be the new vision that you're supposed to now love and play for a game, for little to no reason.
Alone again.
Anyway, as you can see, the game is mostly divided in this kind of chapter with this book, narrating, kind of like a fairy tale when you get down to it. And from the end screen, you'll see that I'm mostly playing on normal. This game is not super easy, but not super hard either, so normal is actually a fair enough balanced difficulty if you know what you're doing. You can also purchase upgrades on all your moves, and the neat thing is that it shows you a mini tutorial in how to handle things with hand-drawn, actually, an actual animation hand-drawn, and there's quite a lot in showcasing each move. So again, the team busted their asses for the presentation of this game. While most of the Brotherhood utilize more conventional armaments, Gabriel has been gifted with a combat cross, a heavy arrow crucifix, which hides a retractable chain inside. The crossbody was one of the first relics the Brotherhood acquired centuries ago. Its full origin is unclear, but it's rumored to have been forged from the nails used to crucify martyrs, of course. The original cross relic did not have a chain, and thus it was not very effective as a weapon, at least not against most earthly menace. One of its first wielders, a Brotherhood artisan by the name of Rinaldo Gandolfi, was responsible for the creation of the now iconic chain. The Iron Chain was its first addition, and during the forging process, every single link of a chain was quenched in holy water and then blessed to give the weapon more power against the undead. Gandolfi is an Easter egg from Lament of Innocence, in case you need to know. The daggers have been balanced to be thrown with extraordinary precision. They're made of silver and there are small bones of Saint in it with its grip. One characteristic of the weapon is destructive power against supernatural beings, especially those who are descendants of the lycanthropy Dark Lord. Kind of like the projectiles that Jeepers Creepers used in the movie. Also, the medallions. I will not mention much of a narration of this one because it's very simplistic. Essentially, kind of like God of War. You have 3 different tiers of medallions with all the 5 items. Collect all of a set to upgrade a bit a specific health bar. But here's our protagonist. As an infant, Gabriel was found abandoned at the door of one of the Brotherhood of Light convents. It's not known who his original parents were. Some suspect he was the unwanted bastard of a local wealthy landowner, most likely from the Conquest family. Though this was never been proved. The Order named the boy after the blessed Archangel Gabriel and raised him as one of his own. A precocious child, he quickly proved to be extremely talented, developing an impressive mastery of the fighting arts. Gabriel took the surname of Belmont from his love for the mountains, it's French, and the high places of the world. Prone to dark moods and occasionally ambivalence, Gabriel was deeply affected by the death of his childhood sweetheart Marie. He has embarked on his quest at the request of the Elders of Brotherhood and has a burning desire for revenge, so crawling in my skin and stuff. But go on, Dej. Dej? I guess it's BRB.
That is the
sound of crickets playing in the background.
Alright, time to learn instead more of the Lord.
I just realized I had myself on
Perfect timing.
I said last month
go on.
this game. It was challenging, but a lot of fun.
Which version?
Actually, you're just in time, Dej. Would you kindly read the text that is about to appear?
Okay.
This?
Yes.
The Brotherhood Night Scroll. There is something in the water, something terrible. I have seen men drag under, never to return. The location of these creatures can only be seen as ripples or bubbles on the surface. I surmise one must wait for those ripples and bubbles to disappear before progressing through the bog. One cannot walk around them because noxious fumes lay either side of the safe path. So one must be patient and wait for.
Sorry.
Screw you.
Yeah,
well, to be fair,
don't ask someone to read.
To be fair,
I pasted with my own reading, Dweebs. I estimated it would have been the same for all the others.
To be fair, there was a bit of time taken up with Dej realizing that he needed to read it. I
would say that the font is not the most friendly, especially on the smaller screen. It gets worse in the second game. I can tell you that.
It's a little blurry as well.
It's actually gothic. It's called gothic.
Be sure to give me a pre-warning when it's me too, so I can change this to full screen so I can read it better.
Also, new enemy type introduction who can use grenades, even though we're in 1047. It's a fantasy setup.
It's Bomberman!
Fucking goblins.
Drop something.
Mostly used for comic relief.
Okay, so that was the Bomberman tribute of the game, I guess.
Dweebs,
that's
just
how
because
Konami saw Bomberman for
Dweebs, just because okay, I can tell you this, we're not gonna have a frog that is a tribute to Frogger.
Also, Dweebs, just because a bomb is from in a Konami game doesn't automatically make it a Bomberman thing. Also, Gabriel just ripped out that guy's spine.
Goblins. These diminutive, mischievous, and crabby creatures usually avoid contact with humans. Goblins make their home around tree roots and mossy damp areas and like to hunt insects. Although they can be aggressive when threatened, goblins usually prefer to keep far from men and their dwellings. Goblins are a species on the verge of extinction and before too long will pass into history and then myth. And Goblin's lair will be so proud of that.
Yes.
But yeah, here's the gimmick with the goblins. Every time you kill them with a grab, they drop actually a bomb. So if you can grab it, Gabriel will automatically yeet it to the next nearby target for hilarious results.
Also, I'm currently playing Super Castlevania 4.
That's pretty neat. But to mention quickly, actually, this is to introduce the gimmick of this particular dungeon. The bog bed was mentioned in the scroll. If you step too much into it, the spirits will grab you and pull you under. So watch out.
Lovely.
Anyway, the horse actually is voiced by Alexander Mikic, a Bosnian actually voice actor. He's mostly famous for TV stuff in his own country. Yes, sir?
No, I'm considering your talk about this being the only Castlevania-related thing in years. I'm actually trying to remember right now when Castlevania Rebirth came out because that was really good.
Anyway, Naiad. A large part of the danger in swamps lies in the hands of creatures called Naiads. These living beings are usually passive, lying inconspicuously on the riverbed in muddy, damp places, waiting until someone stumbles within range. When they attack their unfortunate victims, usually mistake their limbs for branches and are soon drowned and eaten. In days gone by, these once beautiful creatures were worshipped and sacrifices were made to them, but they are now forgotten by humans and have become evil predators, plaguing both wandering man and beast alike. You're referring to the collection, Pedro, with Rebirth?
Was Rebirth included in the recent collection?
Yeah.
I don't know which specific game you're referring
Well,
to.
I'm talking about Castlevania, The Adventure Rebirth, which was a WiiWare game made by
Oh,
M2.
oh.
I actually
okay.
don't know about
okay,
that.
okay,
It came out in
The
it came out in Europe in February 2010.
Okay,
Yeah,
so the
when
reason
did
for
this one
the
come out again?
2010 too.
Oh, there you go. Then we had also, Rebirth was a fantastic classic style Castlevania made by M2, so that was that.
There was Harmony of Dissonance, I think, around the same
Yes,
time.
Trevor?
The reason for the confusion page was that there is a Castlevania collection called Castlevania Rebirth. So when you said Castlevania Rebirth,
okay.
No,
it's
it's
on your
not.
profile.
I don't think it's the one done in
You're
recent
talking
time.
about Requiem.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
What collection was that? Is that the
Konami-
recent one on?
That's
Kon-
Symphony in the Night and Rondo of Blood.
Yeah,
that
Konami.
one, yeah.
PSP.
Konami recently has done two different collections. A duology just for the PS4, which is kind of a shame, for the original TurboGrafx 16 of Rondo of Blood and the Xbox 360 version of Symphony of the Night. And instead, a more recent one includes basically the classic trilogy, Bloodlines, I think the Game Boy games, for instead all consoles and PC, which is more neat. I hope we actually can get more collections because it's a neat way because they are.
Metroidvanias in one collection.
It's interesting.
Yes.
Because Castlevania: The Adventure Rebirth, made by M2, but exclusively for WiiWare, that was actually a remake of one of the Game Boy titles.
Oh, now I get what you mean, because instead the collection includes the OG adventure, not the WiiWare remake.
Shame, because I actually think M2's remake is better.
Anyway, much like in say stuff like a Sonic game, this game has a branching paths. So this encourages a bit of replayability because you might lose collectibles that are here. Collectibles mostly in the form of gems that expand your inventory or upgrades to your side weapons like the daggers.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, for example, like an extra gem here. With the naiads, as you can see, you have to just be very careful, but as soon as they grab you, you have to, there you go, press that QTE, but if you fail it, it's an insta-kill. Thankfully, the game is actually relatively general with the checkpoints, so even on harder difficulties, this is still actually manageable. However, don't dilly-dally too much in the mud, otherwise Gabriel will start sinking on his own, so you still have to go on his own. Sometimes you have to actually wing it.
No, I will say, okay. Obviously, I understand that Castlevania, the Rebirth games that M2 made for Konami were kind of, like undernoticed because WiiWare wasn't exactly the most popular thing.
It wasn't like only one Rebirth game made.
No. They made Contra Rebirth, which was also great. They made Rebirth for three specific games, Joe. Contra,
I meant to say, wasn't there only one Castlevania Rebirth game made?
Yes, there was. Well, like I said, Joe, it's a remake of Castlevania Adventure from the Game Boy. But it's actually a really great remake, and I think, remember, it's M2, the same guys who've done all the excellent emulations that we Sonic fans have adored over the years, like the recent Sega Ages ones. And they're now making for Square Enix, The Legend of Mana remaster.
Which does look really impressive, I have to say.
No, you cannot. No, trust me, you're in more than capable hands with M2. M2 is fantastic.
It reminds me instead of something else. First of all, have you actually, out of curiosity, I don't even know if you actually know it exists, have you actually tried the Russian Attack reimagining that was done by the team that did Silent Hill Downpour?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Instead, it's something that you actually did talk about us in the past. I mentioned that Konami was kind of on a reboot spree around these times, and was the Rocket Knight adventure game they did around this time a reboot or a sequel?
No,
I know that you told us that it's bad, but what I do want to know is it a reboot or a sequel?
It's okay. Let me put it this way: the game doesn't really care because it doesn't make any kind of ties to anything. It's just it's a very generic. The world is in peril by this thing. Go stop it. Really, like they don't even make it clear when this thing, if it takes place in any place at all, or if it's just a reboot. That's how lackluster that game is too. That game was clearly made on a very small, microscopic budget.
Okay.
How cheap you talking?
Well, Jova, there's no substitute for actually watching it. Go to YouTube, check Rocket Knight. I think it was 2010 that it came out.
Yes. Again, this was around the year where Konami was kind of on a reboot spree. They also tried to do one.
Check Rocket Knight 2010. Watch it for yourself and look how fucking ugly that game looks.
They also tried to do a new title for Vandal Hearts. I still actually have it because I got curious. I'm a sucker for tactical RPGs, but I actually haven't tried it on my own yet.
Let me put it this way, Jova. It looks ugly. It sounds bland. It plays incredibly unremarkably. It's a very typical shovelware type of game that like nobody can really enjoy aside from, I guess, really little kids who don't have standards.
It's one of those new games that just generically has the name Rocket Knight as its title. You know, despite the fact that there's...
Well, okay. To be fair, no, it does technically have the character, it has the rocket, it does have the bare minimum stuff.
No, Pedro. I was talking strictly about the title, about how it's just called Rocket Knight, even though I'm pretty sure there's already an original game called Rocket Knight, so of course
well, no, actually, the original one was called Rocket Knight Adventures. So technically, Rocket Knight is one I guess they could use. It's kind of like how, it's a reverse of it's a reverse of what Rocky 6 did, where it's called Rocky Balboa, but instead they took away one of the words.
So I get it. It's kind of like. So I get it. It's kind of like.
I don't know what to tell you, Jova.
Actually, instead, the next one to be reading. Jova, go ahead.
All right then.
Let's see what this poor fellow died.
There is a mausoleum here in the bog that has lain undisturbed for many years. Cardinal Volpe informs me that the legendary artisan Ronaldo Gandolfi constructed a powerful relic there during his sojourn, which will aid the one that wields the combat cross. I must admit I am apprehensive. Many of my comrades lay dead along the way, and I am wondering if this fool's errand will not be the end of me too.
Well, you know what happened. Sometimes there's a bit of hilarity knowing how these poor people actually died.
It's like in Resident Evil 3 remake, one guy who's one of the Umbrella operatives that kills BOWs. He's like, I got a job at Umbrella. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. He's dead.
It's like the Arrested Development director. I hope I don't die. He died.
Shit.
Anyway,
that being said, well, okay, it's not much, but I guess there was Castlevania: The Adventure Rebirth the same year, so...
Also, like I said, Harmony of Dissonance, which is a neat kind of way to close the franchise in a way, because it's, you know, kind of a family reunion. Konami was supposed to release a gacha game that, you know, included characters from all the franchise, which I do believe had an interesting premise, but because it didn't particularly interested people in Japan, they chickened out before even releasing it in the West. So that's kind of a shame.
Also,
in the meantime, Iga returned with his own, you know, Bloodstained series, which got 2 amazing spin-offs on pixel art, and it's getting a sequel now. So, again, who's laughing now?
It's funny you mentioned Harmony of Dissonance, because technically at that point the Soma series hadn't completed yet either, because that one...
Dawn of Soma was later?
Well, remember, Well, okay. The second game involving Soma, that's on the DS. Harmony of Dissonance.
Yeah, Dawn of Sorrow,
Harmony
which
of
is responsible.
Dissonance
Sorry, go on.
Harmony of Dissonance is a Game Boy Advance game, so it could not have come afterwards.
Okay, then I'm confusing the title because there was the PS3 and Xbox 360 era game. Let me see what it's called because I hear. Harmony of Despair. There you go. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. That one's that's the big sort of reunion game, though. Isn't that one technically not even a mainline game, but like...
No, it's just for fun.
That said, though, it did give us some amazing remixes.
Yes, Pedro?
If
Someone is watching us. If you remember, the AVGN actually took a look at this, and his conclusion was arguably very simple. It's a fun game, but so far it isn't much of a Castlevania vibe, and I kind of have to agree. This is something that will be carried on until the very end of the game, so keep that in mind. But here's a cool thing. Along his journey, Gabriel will find the mausoleum, like this scroll mentioned, that were done by General Gandolfi, and through this amazing sequence, our combat cross will be actually upgraded. Yes, Pedro?
I was gonna say, well, for those who aren't familiar, go to YouTube and search M2 The Complete Works. I just did it to tell. It's a documentary made by My Life in Gaming that basically chronicles their career and how they started and all this. It's a really cool documentary.
Also, yeah, as you can tell, still PS3 game, so it has a lot of bloom. But here's the upgrade got, the hook tip. This relic was also built by the renowned artisan Rinaldo Gandolfi. The articulated metal tip that can be used to grip objects and enemies from a distance, giving the combat cross the properties of a grappling hook. This also allows the wielder to climb, grapple, and swing around the environment when combined with the combat cross. Which again opens up a new platforming challenge, because yes, this game still maintains some platform elements that older Castlevania games had. Again, I mentioned this multiple times in the past. It will become more clear when I repeat it at the very end. I do believe among the countless reboots in the video game genre that failed, I do believe this one at worst is still more of a noble failure than anything. Because in this case, developers at least tried. They tried to be respectful to the source material. They did not call fans of the original series entitled for it. And instead tried to still put, a spin to on things without being, too offensive about it. But in the meantime, new enemy type, the Swarm Troll. A rare subspecies of a larger cave troll. Although similar in appearance to their dryland cousin, the thick fur has been replaced with a slimy coating similar to wild mold, which better suits the damper weather of their habitat. Swarm trolls are ferocious in battle and display a cunning that belies their outward appearance. As you can see, our daggers normally don't really work on this guy. So again, the bestiary kind of mechanic site on the cool description actually tells us a few tips against this kind of enemy that we can use. So in this case, just stick to your combat cross.
In the meantime, I'm checking just to make sure, yes, they're right here on the Steam page for the Legend of Mana Remastered. It says here developers Square Enix and M2.
Yeah, I checked. It's a bit of...
this is M2's first PC version of a game.
I checked also. It's a bit of a shame that it seems to be localized in almost all European language except mine. I don't really get what's the thought process behind it. But alas, I can live without it. Anyway, for the time being, again, even on normal mode, this enemy is still relatively easy to do. The game has a few besides mini-boss fights, so you will have actually proper boss fights as the game goes on. But for the time being, we also have these mini-bosses at the end of levels that, can offer a more challenging encounter. Open wide. There we go.
Yeah, to be honest, I've only seen a few Castlevania games. So far, this is coming off to me. Maybe this should have just called it Lords of Shadow or something. I think
there's a lot of...
to it.
Okay. To be fair,
there's a lot of speculation that it was supposed to be originally its own IP.
To be fair, there will be stuff later in the narrative which definitely does make you go, okay, this is definitely opting to be a Castlevania title.
And I can tell you already, the sequels or instead go full through in being attached to the Castlevania IP instead of
Do
being
you
more.
think they should just went full on Maximo, which was originally meant to be a Ghosts and Goblins title, but they made it a new IP?
Kinda, I guess.
Okay. I'll just say this: at the end of the day, I don't mind that this has the Castlevania title in it because, again, it does give an interesting what if kind of universe for Castlevania, I would argue.
I will argue it still has, it still has the medieval setting, the vampiric werewolf type of aesthetic and stuff like that. You're still fighting.
To be fair,
yes.
Pedro, the medieval setting is kind of not something that is needed for Castlevania because, well, by the time the main timeline was pretty much finished, we were like in the future,
modern, pretty much.
True, but the classic games from back in the day did have.
Though I can argue they were more in a bit subdued way because you were just exploring the castle. In here, you're basically in full environment. We will get an actual proper castle storming later on, but most of the time you'll be basically outdoors like this. You can clearly tell this was still around the time devs were trying to, capitalize on the success of Lord of the Rings by having this kind of fantasy setting, a bit similar to what
a Western market.
A bit, that too, but also a bit how Sierra did with the Legend of Spyro trilogy.
I have no attachment or ill will towards that aspect of the
I have a soft spot for its edginess, but the gameplay hasn't aged the most
You got
gracefully.
Shadow Spyro.
yeah, people like him.
Although Hunter's redesign can burn in hell.
That's what that.
It's just one of those you should maybe there should have been a new idea.
Again.
Okay, hold on. If I recall correctly, it's a new scroll. So Pedro.
Right.
Actually, no, it's just a gem. Mine. No, don't worry. We'll get more scrolls in the next part. Sorry, my bad.
I do.
What were you saying, Jova?
I argue again that while I'm fine with this being a Castlevania title, I do feel like Konami should have done a better job with the marketing of this game to make it clear that it was a Castlevania title, and again, the circumstances with it. Like, again.
To be fair, Jova, we did see the E3 presentation,
Oh, sure, yes. But my point is, in regards to the marketing as a whole, Konami weren't as clear as they could have been with this game. Okay, it wasn't as bad as how Marvel Comics tend to be with some of their events or whatnot, but it does have a bit of a similar issue where they did not explain as well. Now, one could argue part of it was them not wanting to spoil the surprise, but there are some bits that I argue they could have explained that would not have spoiled, but would also give people a better inkling here. And again, also, maybe they were trying to see if this was going to be their new gravy train or whatnot, but they were not clear on if this was outright replacing Castlevania or if this was just something running alongside it at the time.
Anyway, tune in for the next part where Gabriel will have to meet one of the old gods, one that still lives despite everything. A name that Lives might be familiar with because a character in a fairy tale book holds a flute that is named after him, Pan. See you for the next part.
See ya.
Or you gonna say the Pied Piper?